everyone. Welcome to today's episode of 10-Minute Marketing. I'm your host, Sonja Crystal Williams. So joining me today, I have Victoria Carlton, and Victoria is the founder of Carlton Creative Co. She leads a very talented team that delivers impactful marketing solutions that resonate with audiences. I've watched her build this amazing, talented team over the course of several years. So welcome. Glad to have you here today, Victoria.
Thanks, Sonja. I really appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. So I'm going to jump right in because one of the things as I've watched your company really grow, and even just, how you and I first met, just that whole realm just behind content creation and content strategy, I think has been an area where I've really seen your team thrive. So I want to kind of jump right in with the first question of, when you are working with clients and you're positioning them to just deliver strong content that's going to resonate with their audience, like, what's the starting point for that? If you're piecing together some of the parts or the framework that goes into a strategy, like, what are some of the important areas that you cover when you're working with your clients?
I think one of the most important areas is kind of understanding the business side and their goals, because you need to match the marketing side with that. So you need to have those long-term goals in place, but then understanding some short-term milestones of where is the company working towards, what do they want to get to, because we need to be able to communicate that now, because their 5-year plan is going to look very different from what they're executing right now in year 2, year 3, year 4.
Yeah, I think especially in the world of like anything that's online or digital, like it's like be prepared to pivot, because if you go too far out, like you need the vision, but if you go too far out filling in all the details, it could look totally different like in a couple of years. So I think that's a really great point. When you walk in to help, let's say, well, first let me ask you, what kind of organizations do you find yourself providing the most support to?
So we're really all over the map, and it's because of something that I'm very proud of, which is we've gotten a lot of word of mouth referrals from people. So that means that it's different businesses. But the thing it always comes back to is it's typically a B2B business that we work with the most.
Yeah. And so when you walk into that office, you're working with a B2B business, or it's a Zoom call, whatever it is nowadays in this work environment. What do you find are like the missing pieces? Where do they need help? Like, what's common that you see?
It's usually they either have marketing staff on hand, but it's a very, very small team. So they're overwhelmed, or they're in the weeds of something really important, and they're not able to focus or continue progressing. So one of the most important things in marketing, I think you'll agree with, is being consistent and not having stoppages or gaps. And that's usually the thing that we'll pick up and say, if you can't handle that right now, or you've never done it, we can come in and have something going consistently for you, so you can really start to see results and then keep those results.
Yeah. So what is that thing for you all? Is it, hey, we're picking up your social media. Hey, we're going to do some ads for you. Like, what are those different components that you all end up digging into?
Probably the biggest one is social media, and specifically with B2B, it's usually on LinkedIn and in that sphere, or a lot of the times it'll be a startup maybe, and they've had really great success. They've gotten a lot of big customers, but then they never thought about the brand or their website. And then we're coming in and doing a brand new website, or communicating the copy side of things and writing everything that they now have pivoted and changed to as they've started to onboard those new clients.
That makes sense. So you kind of bring up another part where like they never thought about the brand. Do you all go that deep with clients and helping them kind of piece together where brand from a visual standpoint, and I guess I always call it like the intangible part, the messaging, like all that other stuff, like where that intersects with the actual tangible product, which is the social media posts? Like, what's the intersection there for you all, and how do you see that play out with some of those B2B
Yes,
businesses?
that's so important, and I love that you bring it up, because a lot of clients don't know or don't have an understanding of that to begin with. Really and truly, it's either we are going to develop and bring in that brand, or we're going to update and refine. And the brand, is much more than just the logo or just the color palette. Those things are really important for consistency, like I said earlier. But then, what is the tone of your brand, and how does that correlate into what you're writing? Because being consistent on that voice side of things makes a huge difference as well. And I mean, anybody, you don't have to be a communication or marketing expert. You can tell when somebody else is writing a post on behalf of a company, and it changes from post to post. And that's something that you don't want people to see, right? Like, you don't want to break third wall. You want it to still be from the company.
One of the somebodies, you bring up the somebody writing the post. One of the somebodies I've been talking about lately a lot is the AI somebody, because I've had, even in my own experience working with clients, some clients say, oh, we don't need blog writers anymore. We're just going to have ChatGPT do all the work. So you've heard this too, I imagine.
Mm-hmm. Many, many times. I'm like, retweet.
Oh my gosh. How do you feel? So I was on a panel at a conference and we were having the AI conversation, and I'll hold what my thoughts were just when it comes to just writing social media content for AI. What are your thoughts about that, and pros and cons to even using that or taking that into account, and all these different tools that help people do that?
This is such a big topic and you can go in so many different ways with it. But first and foremost, when I get that feedback, it's really about anybody can get something from AI, right? Like, I agree. I don't dispute that. However, what you're going to find is it's something that everyone can recognize as AI. And that's only going to become more and more as people are seeing and using AI and getting to understand that better. And I don't think that it performs well. It doesn't have the right tone or right voice. Of course, you can prompt them a little bit better, but typically the clients who don't need writers anymore don't know how to prompt. So then you get into a whole new can of worms. I think that there's a time and a place, and we certainly do use AI to kind of help with some brainstorming things or talking through with the AI. That's kind of one of my favorite things, is to go back and forth and say, here's my idea, here's how I see it playing out. Like, what holes do you see in this? Or where could we improve on this? And that really helps me see it from a different angle sometimes. But if you're not a professional and then using AI to apply it to something specific, like writing social media or writing blog posts, it's never going to be successful. And the copy is only one component of any social media posts or anything that you see written, right? A lot of times there's a lot more associated with that, like a graphic or a video.
Yeah. I'm with you. When I was on that panel, my stance was specifically for writing social media content. Like, remember that it's, in a sense, regurgitating stuff that's out there. It's not creating per se. So to your point, like, you could lose your tone and your voice in the process. I'm with you. Brands need to have that stance and that position. It's what makes them unique and different. So if everyone starts sounding the same, where do we differ, and how do these algorithms know what to prioritize? Because that's part of the process. I'm not saying play to the algorithm, but the reality is it exists and it has an impact on how much your post gets seen. So yeah.
That's a really good point too.
Yeah. So AI is like one thing, and we could look at that as, in a sense, like a trend. What are some of the other trends that you're seeing as it relates to content development, creation, things that people are putting out there as it relates to it?
Video is a thing that people are the most afraid of, I think. I have tons of clients who don't want to do it or say I'm too nervous and are not willing, but that's the thing that just keeps getting bigger and bigger. There's so much flexibility and versatility with it that you can do with video. And it's like, you don't have to be doing the TikTok trend or the dance. There's so many different applications, because the video is a hook, and that's something that can get eyeballs for you immediately on something and actually engage with your audience. And video is only growing on other platforms like LinkedIn. Like, they now have the built-in captions that now come up. So one less thing in the editing process that you can have to do.
With video, okay, so let's put on our hat as if you're gonna work with a new client, and this client's in the B2B world. And I come across this, like, even these clients and teams that have a marketing team, they've got some internal staff, but like you said, they're overwhelmed, overworked. How do you help move them along? Because the thing that a lot of businesses probably experience when it comes to video creation is like what are we going to put on video, and who's going to be on video? Like, that's usually the biggest roadblock. I mean, there's a bunch of other roadblocks, but that's a big one. How do you hold their hand into the start of that as a trend?
Yeah, you make such a good point. That's exactly what they say is, who has the time for this, who can actually do it, who can be a part of it. but I don't think that they initially see the value, right? You can do so much with the video, whether you're showing off brand storytelling or customer testimonials or product demos. I like to involve the whole team when it comes to that because of how different these are. So if you're going to do a customer testimonial, nobody from the team has to be involved at all. So, checked one box immediately.
Yep.
You just need to have someone that loves your work and is a big supporter of you. And every client I've worked with has people like that who are ready to jump. And even if those people are nervous about video, they usually will agree to it and say, yes, I'm in, I'll do this for them because it means a lot. And then on the other side, we work with the sales teams when it's product demos. So then they can run through and work on something. And usually salespeople are the right person with video because they're so comfortable already speaking in front of others, or they know the product so well that they can nail it immediately. But yeah, it just depends. If there's not that one person, that's okay. We can come up with a strategy for that.
Yeah. So salespeople, great. That's an awesome nugget. Because some organizations don't even think about that. Like, go to your salespeople. They're out in the field. They talk about it all the time. They know what to say. And then those customer testimonials would be a good one. And it's kind of like that nervousness that people experience because no one feels like they want to, as far as people working there, be in front of the camera. So it's like, who do you find? So those are some really good takeaways. So you all are on the agency side of things. And then you have companies, as you mentioned, that might have some staff in-house. How does a company, what do you find by the time they come to you as an agency? What have they gone through? What have they encountered? Like what helps a company get to that space where that's part of the decision-making process?
I think you have probably gone through this and seen this at your clients too, but the number one thing that I've encountered surprisingly is someone will say, we worked with an agency before, we worked with somebody in some piece of marketing and it was a horrible experience. Or a waste of money, waste of time. Like, how do I know that working with you isn't going to be the same result? And so that's something that is super important to talk about upfront and say, well, what went wrong there? And usually it's something that Carlton Creative and my team members, we don't go there. We would never make that same fatal mistake that they have. So that's the number one thing that usually helps to reassure them and understanding that, don't worry, it's not going to take me 3 weeks to reply to an email. I reply to all my emails within 24 hours. But that's like really important, right? To reassure them. And so usually they've been burned before is the biggest one. Or the second one, they finally are starting to see like, oh, I saw the value of this at another person's company that I know. And I just don't have anybody yet. And I think this would be better to outsource right now. Or when they do have that person working with them, this person's working on this very important project with me, and they just don't have the capacity. So then that's when they start working with an outside agency. And that's awesome too, because then if there is a marketing person there, they can kind of be a part of the process too and drive that. And then there's a little bit less of that educational piece if you're working with another marketer.
Very true. Very true. And then in the case where maybe there's not a marketer, how do you find things flow when you're working maybe directly with the business owner?
So when it flows that way, there's a lot more of the educational piece up front. And I try to do a lot of visuals with them or take it a step back and start explaining the finer details of like what data points mean. And again, something else that comes up tons for everybody in marketing is, I just want to lead or I just want to see the conversion, but there's so many other metrics that are associated with that. And then breaking that down and say, how is this a value add to you? Or what does this mean for you and your bottom line? That's probably the biggest elephant in the room immediately with working with an owner.
Okay. So that's a good point. But it leads to so the owners do want to see the conversions, but that is it. When you get to that space where it's like, okay, we've been publishing content. It's been 3 to 6 months. We're in there. We're comfortable. We know each other. We trust each other. How do you start to figure out and even maybe explain to that client what's effective, what's not, what to keep, what to abandon, and is that enough time even to start making those determinations so that they have a realistic outlook?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you've got to have those 3 to 6 months of content generating to even reassess and reevaluate. And that's another piece is typically businesses aren't that patient, right? Like they want to see the result in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, or make a pivot from there. And I like to say, let's get some trends, because we base everything at Carlton Creative in analytics and data, and we'll provide monthly reports. We'll review that with them and give them key takeaways. And we're not afraid to say, here's what's working, but here's what's not working. And we'll say, let's keep an eye on this, because it's nothing horrible that's maybe changed in the trends, but let's understand, is that something for next month that we should reconsider? Is it not? And then if they want to push back and say, I want to change now, then we have to reevaluate that again and then understand, okay, does that really make sense or does it not? And here's the data that backs it up. Usually when you talk about the numbers, that helps, because it gives them something concrete, because so many things in marketing, it's not black and white, right? Like everything's a little gray, and you have to navigate it that way.
Just for fun, I want to ask you, you kind of mentioned LinkedIn, but where are you all enjoying just the work you do in terms of if you were to break it down per social network, where are you having the most fun versus maybe where you feel like I'm getting the best bang for my buck for my clients over here?
Yeah. So, I mean, really, it's LinkedIn, because I just think it's so undervalued and people don't realize the value of LinkedIn. Yeah. Even if I can get a leader from the leadership team to take part in that, they can have a really big impact for their organization. And usually people at that high level are invested in the success of the company. So then they're willing. And that's where we get to have the most fun, because then we get to work with the person one-on-one and really understand more about their personal life and what defines them as a professional, because usually those experiences go hand in hand, even though people try to turn it off, but there's outlets and things that build you into the professional you are today. So that's the best part, is working with someone where we get to share more of their story of what led them on this path for that particular client. Because usually the clients, they're solving some sort of business problem or a pain point, and then understanding how did they get led to this pain point and what did it mean for them personally.
Absolutely. So LinkedIn is the winner right now. Now, I agree. I've always told people it's although I will say probably over the past 3 to 5 years, that platform has grown phenomenally. But prior to that, I would always tell people it's one of the most underutilized platforms. And I think people are still figuring it out more so than before. People understand how to use it, but it's one of those platforms. It's yeah, why aren't you here? It's social media, just like everything else. And it doesn't have to be as stuffy as people think it has to be, where it's, your commentary and your captions are very boring. So
absolutely. Yes. And that's the other thing, right? They're well, I don't want to share a Facebook post, and Facebook's not LinkedIn. And I completely understand that. I promise you what we're going to post is never going to look like a Facebook post. There's ways to make it a lot of fun, and it doesn't need to be something that's a canned response, or it doesn't need to be something that you're afraid of corporate sees this. It's LinkedIn. Yes. They're going to be really happy that you're interacting and updating in this way.
Yeah. And talking about what you do. So thank you so much for sharing, Victoria. I want to wrap up our conversation with a few questions that I like to call our lightning round. And the first question, really the kind of the first two questions I have for you are kind of around the work you do at Carlton Creative. So, and the last one is just pure fun. So first question is, what do you love about the work you do?
I feel like I just answered that, so I'll try to make it a little bit different. But what I love most about the work that I do is we work completely remotely at Carlton Creative. So I love when we can break that barrier and be in person with either a client or even with our team. We're about to go on our company retreat soon this fall. And so that's the most rewarding part, is when you get to see people in person and then understand the impact that you've really had. And you get the feedback of, hey, I went to this event and somebody knew about our company because of what you've been posting on LinkedIn. Or, hey, because I shared that more personal thing on LinkedIn and related it to professionally, I was able to start a conversation with somebody else who had that same experience, and that turned into a business opportunity. So that's the part that I really love the most about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's what you said earlier, about how you all get a lot of business word of mouth, but to some degree, social media kind of is, when people see it, even though they don't comment. They'll call you if they have your number, they'll email you if they have your email address, and that will turn into a private conversation that can lead to new opportunities. So I think that's
absolutely
really,
and you stay top of mind at the same time, right? That's so rewarding for people that, you're first on the list when they have a need.
Yes, exactly. And that's what we all want. second question. And I know like you have, I don't want to say it's not a brand new business. It's a young business, right? I think you've been in business, what, under 5 years or right around that mark,
Yes.
somewhere in
Yeah.
there. So but you've grown your team. How, or let me rephrase it. What are your biggest takeaways from being someone who worked independently to now having a team in place and growing your organization?
I think my biggest takeaway that I just didn't know is I didn't know what entrepreneurship was going to be all about. It was not about continuing to do the same work that I loved in digital marketing and communication. It was more so of learning what does it take to actually run a business, what's the behind the scenes of a business, all the other things that every entrepreneur goes through. But in my case, I just wasn't thinking. And I wish that I would have known a little bit more, taken some entrepreneurship classes in college so I could understand and have that perspective. But thankfully, like I told you earlier, I've worked with a lot of startups, so I get to learn and grow besides them sometimes, or they're nice enough to tell me some great tips that would really be beneficial for us internally.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, final question is, you have the winning lottery ticket. You hit it for $5 million. That's what, about 2.5 after taxes. What are you doing?
I'm totally going to go live in Italy, particularly Florence, Italy. I love to travel. I love to see the world, but I would definitely try to move abroad over there and get a place there and work remotely there, because if I'm working remotely now, why couldn't I do it over there?
Exactly.
It's one of my biggest passions, and I've been uncovering my family roots recently, and I'm actually in the process of getting my dual citizenship with Italy. So I'm really excited and really proud of my family's heritage, that that's an opportunity for me.
Congratulations. When you get that place, invite me over. I love Florence.
Thank you. Well, I have to hit the lottery after I get my citizenship.
Exactly. There we go. Let's
get
it in order. I will fly into Milan and ride that train down. So it's so beautiful.
Yes,
thank you so much, Victoria. So where can people find you if they want to get more information about Carlton Creative and learn about your services?
Well, we're keeping this with the same platform, right? All on LinkedIn. I try to be really active on there myself, but then the company page obviously is keeping people posted and educated if you want to learn a few things. Of course, you can always email me too, or send me a message, but it's easy nowadays with social media.
Yeah. So everybody, I'll drop the links so you can find Victoria on LinkedIn, find her company. I will drop those links on our description. So be on the lookout for that if you want to reach out or drop any questions you have for us. And maybe we can get Victoria back for another episode in the future. Until then, everybody, thank you so much for listening. Victoria, thank you for being here. Have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Sonja. Have a great day, guys.